Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Man has climbed Mount Everest, gone to the bottom of the ocean. He has fired rockets to the moon, split the atom, achieved miracles in every field of human endeavor, except crime. My plan is foolproof, gentlemen.
Who are you?
Bond. My name is James Bond.
Gentlemen, Mr. Goldfinger has gold bullion on deposit in Zurich, Amsterdam, Caracas, and Hong Kong. As yet, we have failed to discover how he transfers his gold overseas.
I think it's time Mr. Goldfinger and I met.
Mr. Bond?
Yes?
This is Mr. Goldfinger. Many people have tried to involve themselves in my affairs.
Don't go back to your hotel, senor. They'll be watching you.
Choose your next witticism carefully, Mr. Bond. It may be your last. Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
Baltimore. Nice of him to let us know. Last we heard he was in Switzerland.
Operation Grand Slam. I did enjoy your briefing. You learned to break into the world's largest bank. Not to steal anything.
You hardly distinguished yourself anyway. You were supposed to observe Mr. Goldfinger, not one of his gold. This isn't a personal vendetta, 007. It's an assignment like any other.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Like a French nail varnish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bond, James Bond, with your host, Mike Kalinowski, and myself, Brad Gilmore, promoting our brand new book, Bond, James Bond, exploring the shaken and stirred history of Ian Fleming's 007. This will be a limited podcast series that will dive into every single James Bond movie, and we will break them down. We will give our opinions, our hot takes, or whatever comes across our mind in the world of MI6's greatest secret agent, James Bond, 007. We hope that you enjoy the podcast, so much so that you go to bondjamesbondbook.com and order our brand new book, available on bondjamesbondbook.com or wherever books are sold. Let's enjoy the podcast.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch.
And here we are back on Bond, James Bond, myself, Brad Gilmore, alongside Mike Kalinowski. Today we're talking about Goldfinger.
That's what we said last time. It was like some songs you can't not sing it like the singer. Like Goldfinger.
Are you a fan of the movie Fletch? Did you ever watch Fletch?
From Chevy Chase?
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, you know, there's the scene
sandwich and a steak sandwich.
Put it on the Underhills tab. There's the scene where he's trying to get info on Alan Stanwyck, and he's at the doctor or whatever. He's at Stanwyck's doctor, and he's doing a proctological exam on him or something. Because
Mr. Babar.
Yeah, Mr. Babar. Yeah, B-A-B-A-R, two B's not right next to each other. But when he inserts his digit into Fletch Fletch goes, Moon River, right?
Yeah.
And I never noticed that it's the same exact tune. Goldfinger and Moon River, it's the same tune. Like Goldfinger.
Yeah, now hearing it, I guess it is.
River. I mean, at least it sounds like it to me. Maybe I made that up, but it sounds very similar to me. This is the third James Bond movie of the Eon production series. It came out in 1964. It had a runtime of 110 minutes and a budget of $3 million, made $125 million at the box office, which by today's standards would be a huge, huge hit if you do the adjust for inflation and things like that nature. Goldfinger, though, I think if you were to ask somebody, hey, name a James Bond movie, this is probably the first one they say, right?
Yeah. I would say this, it depends on the age, too. A lot of people say Casino Royale. I think that's a huge popular one among people now, but that's when it kind of opened up audiences to Bond. But yeah, Goldfinger, I would say Goldfinger. More than anything pre-Craig.
More than anything pre-Craig. Yeah, I agree with that.
Easily.
I agree with that. And the thing is, this is probably the most iconic Sean Connery Bond of the six that he did. This is one of those movies that gets entered into the lexicon. It has this is the one that has, you can't complain. There's no complaint about any part of it for me, where it's Sean Connery kind of really getting into the role of Bond. He is Bond by this time. There's no question about it. His closet in his wardrobe, I should say, in this movie is sensational, which I want to talk about in a minute. And then you have the classic femme fatale in Pussy Galore with the name that no one will ever forget. And I just wonder, like, when Ian Fleming wrote that, he's like, oh, what's a good double entendre?
That's kind of on the nose there. Like, it's not even kind of, I don't want to say clever, but it's just like, oh, yeah, it is what it is.
It's not clever in the slightest. But one of the most iconic Bond girl names, or maybe the most, it has to be number one.
It had to be number one. Absolutely number one. I couldn't think of one that would come close to it. No, not even.
Tatiana Romanoff isn't exactly.
No.
Or Honey Rider is cool, but it's not the most iconic.
It's popular.
It's,
no way.
So then you have
Octopussy, maybe Octopussy.
Octopussy's up there.
But that's just because it's the whole title.
Yeah. But you have the femme fatale. You have the memorable death of one of the females in the movie with painted in gold. You have a great henchman, and you have a great villain. It has everything, and it has the Aston Martin. What about this movie sticks out to you when we talk about Goldfinger? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
You're not going to like this. His little powder blue jumper. Like, as cool as that man is, like, I don't know what they were thinking at the time with that thing. Like, I mean, and you can argue if he pulled it off or not, but that's what sticks out. I mean, the Fountain Blue Hotel. Guy grew up in Miami, South Florida, so I knew the Fountain Blue Hotel really well. The laser. You expect me to talk? Like, you can name a dozen classic different things, and they all came from this film when it comes to Bond.
So going back to the powder blue onesie, it's terry cloth, and
terry cloth. That's what it is.
It's a terry cloth powder blue onesie. And what's weird, there must have been, I don't know if it's Harry Saltzman, I don't know if it's Albert Broccoli, I don't know who had the obsession with powder blue. But if you watch all the Bond movies, a lot of the times he's wearing some sort of powder, either it's a shirt, it's a robe, it's a something. He's always got some sort of powder blue going on, but this was the first time I saw it.
I don't remember, like, thinking about that now, I don't ever remember in the books if it was like a big, Fleming thing where he was always Bond loved this blue, and so I don't think they ever looked at it that hard, but maybe it just looked good on film.
Yeah, I mean, back then in the 60s, they used a lot of, especially with the advent of Technicolor, there are certain things that you had to film brighter than others, I think, or something like that. So maybe it was a film choice. A DP made that call. But going to that scene in Goldfinger, you're talking about when they're in Miami, I think, are they on a cruise ship or are they at a hotel? They're at a hotel.
Yeah, hotel, the Fountain Blue Hotel.
The Fountain Blue Hotel.
Famous hotel in Miami.
And so he's getting massaged, and then Felix Leiter comes up. And to me, and we point this out in the book, kind of the evolution of the man Bond throughout the movies. This is one of those most egregious 1960s Sean Connery would never fly in a million years today moments where he's having a massage from Tink, right? It's Tink, I believe is her name. And he goes, Tink, meet Felix. And she goes, hi. He goes, Tink, say goodbye to Felix. She goes, what? And he turns her around, smacks her on the behind, and says, man talk.
It just sends her on her way.
It just sends her. We don't see Tink again. That's the end of Tink. That would never fly in a million years today.
And I think that scene is a lot of the times when people are introduced to Bond. You know, let's say you're Pierce Brosnan and you're trying to get someone into Bond and you want them to watch it, and you go back and show them that, and they're like, what? No, I can't. So there's a lot of, it was a product of its time. It was whether, it is what it is. And I think that's why I love Bond, because there are these time capsules we always talk about in the book where it's a slice of life and how things were in that time in the 60s. So it was, would not fly today.
So let me ask you about Auric Goldfinger. Other than just a sensational name, the name Auric Goldfinger, and the villain, though, again, when we talk about classics of all time, I think if you're going to list the great villains in Bond history, Auric Goldfinger, played by is it Frobe?
You're gonna ask me, and I have no idea. I think it's Gert Frobe. Gert Frobe?
I think, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think
what's funny with
Gert Frobe.
Not funny. Like trying, during researching this book and stuff. It's not like today where you want to find about a movie. Everyone's talking about it, and it's so easy to find the interviews. Like any kind of interview for this period, and one of the things I did with this book was when I went back and watched every film, I went back and watched all the Blu-ray special features. Excuse me there.
You're fine.
So they always have such great special features on and they do like archived footage from, whether they're archived behind the scenes things or press kits or whatever. They're always not the best quality. But with Goldfinger and stuff, like it's so hard they don't really say their names very often in the interviews. So you're not, I couldn't get it. I have no idea what it is. I think it's Gert Frobe.
Frobe. I don't know how you say it, but
I'm sure someone could probably correct us, or if they do know what the correct one is, please let us know.
Yeah. What's funny too is you bring that up. Nothing's worse, and I don't know if you've encountered this in your career, than when you're going to have somebody on a show or you're interviewing them and you've only read their name, but you've never heard their name. And so you're scouring YouTube, being like, is it Kirsten or is it Kirsten or is it Kristen? I don't know which one it is.
The difference between you and I and our careers is I have a lot of the times, and it just happened the other day for auditions, if I'm auditioning for a TV show and I have to say the character's last name or something, and I don't know, and casting will look at that and go, oh, he pronounced it wrong. He clearly doesn't know what the show is. Like, so I'm scouring. I was just the other day scouring for this guy's last name to hear anyone on the show. And no one on the show calls someone by their last name hardly ever.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, that's the worst.
It's terrible.
The worst.
But Auric Goldfinger is so good as a villain, because I feel like more than Dr. No, or even more From Russia with Love, and more than a lot of the Bond villain plots, this is one I actually could follow. Right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
He has all this gold bullion. The other largest deposit of gold bullion is at Fort Knox in the United States. I want to irradiate it. I don't want to steal it. I just want to irradiate it. So my gold is the only gold in the world, and it's worth 100 more times than it would be. It's a great plan. It makes sense.
And then I believe, and again, I'm trying to see if either this was in the research of it. I believe in the book, he stole the gold.
Okay.
And then in the movie, because they were like in the movie, well, that makes no sense. When they're writing the movie, they're like, it makes no sense. It would take forever. I think they wrote out, like, if you got that much money in Fort Knox and you got to steal it, it would take days. And the amount of trucks it would take, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they were saying how much he was going to steal or how much is in there, the number they give. So the writers were like, well, let's just irradiate it and make it useless. And it was like like something, that they thought of. I thought was so clever. I could be completely wrong on this, but I think it was in the book. He steals it or wants to steal it, and it makes no sense, like time-wise. They're like, he'll be there for days. trying to transport all this. Ain't gonna happen in an hour and a half. So they had to kind of come up with a creative way to steal it and technically steal it, and they just had to radiate it, which makes so much sense. And it's great. It's
a great plan, and it makes sense. My thing is this though: if you have this plan and you have all this gold, you're a rich man, and you're about to embark on this journey where you're going to make hundreds of billions of dollars in your gold bullion deposits. Why are you cheating playing bridge like at a hotel? Like what is the point of that? Yeah, exactly. Like, holding his hand to his ear with his hearing aid.
You know, it's stuff like that. I love that you know, like I didn't even think about that. Like I don't know if because we just go along with these plots sometimes and stuff. It's like, yeah, why are you cheating? Maybe because he's always got to win. Mm-hmm. He's always got to win, and whether he's got to cheat to do it, he's gonna do it. But yeah, I don't know why he's cheating at bridge, but
but to go off of that,
yeah.
Okay, so Bond knows he's going to probably be going after Goldfinger, or what have you. Why? This is where I think this may have been the moment that the Bond rumor or the Bond discussion about him not being a great secret agent started, because he immediately introduces himself to Goldfinger, essentially, by making Goldfinger lose at bridge. Now hear this, Goldfinger, right? And he does the whole thing. With Masterson. Is it Jill or is it her sister?
Jill is in Tilly.
Tilly.
That's Jill, but Tilly's her sister, I think, right?
It's one of the two
right now. Yeah, I should know this, but
I always get him
and that was one of those things too. When I was younger, you don't think about stuff like that. Like you're always kind of concerned, and then I thought, as I get older, I'm like, oh. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So that was Jill, and Tilly's the sister. Tilly was never like. Because when, like you said, going back and actually watching them and not just as a kid growing up with them or something, like you want to watch them and dissect them. And it's like, oh, that's the whole big thing about revenge and stuff like that. Like why I didn't pick up, and maybe I think I discovered I got into Bond a little bit earlier than you did as a kid. So for me as a kid, it was just the stunts, the gadgets. Like the gadgets were the thing for me. I could care less about the girls at the time or even the plots. So as I'm watching them as an adult, and I went back and then I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. The whole sister getting revenge and all this. And it's just like, you don't think about that. And that's why these things are such good on rewatches and stuff. But yet Jill died. That was Jill with the gold. And then Tilly was the sister.
So Jill is there. And by the way, by any standards, Jill Masterson is sensationally gorgeous.
Yeah. Shirley Eaton.
Yes.
Eaton.
Shirley Eaton. And so Bond and her, do the deed or what have you. And then he comes back to the hotel room, and what is she? She's painted in gold. And this is how they kill her. Now, this was later paid homage to in the Craig films, as Craig likes to do a lot with Strawberry Fields in Quantum of Solace. And what's also funny about it is I almost wonder, because Strawberry Fields was also an allusion to the Beatles, right?
Right, yeah.
The name. So I almost wonder if that was all done intentionally, because there's the line in this scene where Sean Connery insults the Beatles, right? Where he's like drinking a 53 Dom Perignon above 38 degrees, just like listening to the Beatles without earmuffs,
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. I wonder if that all has something to do. But what did you think of this? Of this death, of this iconic death?
It's iconic. Come on now. It's like, and again, not to throw it so much on being a kid seeing this. You hear all the stories and the rumors of that she died and this and that. Clearly would never make any sense. Of the actress dying on set because of suffocating her skin. But it's iconic. It's like I think that's one of the. I mean, I believe it was on the poster for some of the film posters. That was the iconic image, and it's such a stamp of like, you think about the bad guy like signing his name on that death. Like, yeah, I did that. You're not gonna be able to prove it, but I did that, and here's as blatant as obvious with me signing my name essentially on this thing.
I remember Mythbusters, the show on Discovery Channel. They tested this back in the day. If you could actually die from
gold asphyxiation,
yes, from being painted, your skin suffocation, I think is what you said, and Because remember, the thing is, oh no, she was okay because they left a small patch
on her back or something. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I think that they proved that you couldn't die from this, or you could. I got to look it up.
You can. Come on now. Like, I don't know about. I don't know how much of your air intake is through your skin. I would think that's what your respiratory system is in your mouth and your lungs and your nose. So I'm just going to call BS on that one.
I just wonder.
I've been wrong before, Brad, and I'll be wrong again in the future, I'm sure. So I'll take it.
I just wonder if because I know they tested it. So it was busted. Jamie was covered in gold paint from head to toe and lasted over an hour without reporting any major ill effects besides sight and a flu-like feeling that he described.
Oh.
The Myth stated that the actress portraying the gold-plated woman in Goldfinger, Shirley Eaton, died as well. Well, that's not true. Miss Eaton did survive. The filming of Goldfinger went on to appear in many more feature films and a segment for the show in which she confirmed she was still alive. Oh, so she was on Mythbusters to say, yeah, I didn't die in the movie.
Here I am.
I'm here. So iconic death, but as great as Goldfinger is, does the henchman outshine him in this movie? Is Odd Job more iconic than Goldfinger himself?
I'm going to say no.
No?
He's good. He's classic, but he's no Goldfinger. He's a henchman. Second, number two. So
I just wonder because, okay, not that this is a barometer of what's great or bad, but in Austin Powers,
right,
they parody Odd Job, I think, in the second movie.
Yeah.
Maybe the first one. It was Random Task or Strange?
Random Task.
Random Task. And they didn't get to Goldfinger until the third movie.
Yeah.
With Goldmember. So I don't know. It's fresher on Mike Myers' brain.
Yeah.
Was Odd Job. But
that's like saying that's because Blofeld. Well, that's a good question. Who's more popular, Blofeld or Goldfinger?
I would think Goldfinger.
Okay, if you ask a non-James Bond fan, who's the most popular villain of all time for James Bond? I think they say Goldfinger.
I think they do.
If you ask a Bond fan, they say Blofeld all the time. Like, if who's Bond's arch nemesis, his biggest villain? It was Blofeld. So that's interesting. So Bond kind of broke out of the lexicon of Bond fandom into the world. It's Goldfinger is his most popular villain. But that's curious then why Goldfinger wasn't the first villain in the Austin Powers ones and why they went Blofeld. Because I think maybe they're staying true to the Bond comic or Bond lore and everything, knowing that Blofeld's his arch nemesis.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. I think that
Goldfinger was just another kind of cog in the chain of villains, and Blofeld's the mastermind.
Well, when you're younger too, Blofeld, especially if you watch these movies out of order, like I did, and I think like probably everybody does.
Everyone did.
No one watches them in order unless you have that privilege now.
Right.
But Blofeld wasn't really even a thing for me. Like I didn't even pick up on Blofeld being a thing other than a name drop until You Only Live Twice or whatever.
For me, it was always like, because my first introduction to Blofeld was For Your Eyes Only. And I was like, he's talking about a delicatessen in stainless steel that I have no idea what that meant even as a kid. I was like, what? He wants a deli counter with like a meat slicer?
Yeah.
That's what he's off. So that was my introduction to Blofeld. It wasn't until much later. Then I think Telly Savalas was my second introduction. And then the cat started being pieced together because Blofeld appeared in other films like From Russia with Love, but you never saw him. So he's always kind of there. But as a kid, you don't put it together that he's a mastermind and what they're doing. So yeah, Blofeld was much later for me.
So I think you might be right. I think more of the layman Bond might say Goldfinger is the number one.
So.
But Odd Job to me, again, when we talk about setting the standards, this movie set the standards for everything. Like it set the standards for a great villain, plot, iconic theme song by Shirley Bassey, who that's the. She even came back a few years ago at the Oscars to sing it. I mean, this is how impressive this movie was. And Odd Job's another one where he just sets the bar so high for every villain or every villain's henchman that comes after that. I don't really think there are many other than Jaws and you know, Jaws
is up there. Yeah, Jaws. I prefer Jaws over Odd Job. Jaws, his first appearance, not Moonraker. I could do without his first appearance. They kind of buffooned him, but even like Mr. Hinks feels like a takeoff on Odd Job, doesn't he?
Right.
Like it just does. These big, like Harold Sakata, that just like big barrel chested, like
pro wrestler,
mound of a man.
Harold Sakata was a pro wrestler, and so was Dave Bautista.
Tell. Yeah.
So there was that illusion there too.
Definitely, he was in that vein of Odd Job.
But the hat. So I want to go to this golf scene just for 1 second, because everything about this I love. I love Sean Connery's outfit with the brown jacket and the light brown pants and the tie, and I love Jerry Dugan, who was the actor who played Hawker, which is Bond's caddy at the club. I love this guy. I have no idea why he's in the movie. Like, he seems like he and Bond are great friends. And I love the little, again, Bond just outsmarts Goldfinger at every turn. So at first it's on the at the hotel with the bridge game, and then they're playing a friendly game of golf.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's have
like Schlesinger 7?
Schlesinger 7. Oh, this is a Schlesinger 7. You must have, don't you play a 1, or and just let's have a little fun with Goldfinger, right? Yeah. And that whole thing, and I loved it. And then at the end, where he's writing the check, I always tell people this is why I wish that I was born in the 60s or somewhere around then, or the 50s or the 40s for that matter, because the vernacular and the vocabulary of everyone is just so elevated beyond what it is today. We have digressed as a society in the way that we've
shortened words down to the bare minimum to get the point across.
Right. We don't say obvious. We say obvi, and things of this nature. But anyway, when Goldfinger says, you want this check made out to cash, Sean Connery could have said, yeah, or that works. Sounds good. That'd be dope. He says, he goes, that would be perfectly satisfactory. And it's just such a cool Bondian way of saying
perfectly satisfactory.
Yes. Give me that money in cash. And then he points to Odd Job, and he touches the hat and points at the statue, which is another just iconic scene. Odd Job with the hat. It takes off the head, and Bond goes, what would the club owner have to say about this? He goes, oh, nothing, Mr. Bond. I own the club. Or what? It was just so many great things. And the Aston Martin makes its debut in this one. That is just the classic Bond car. He's pretty much always in an Aston Martin from here on out. So I just think that
scenes are just so great. Like the villain and the hero together, they're in a nondescript setting, and any other films, these characters would be trying to kill each other, but there's always that undercurrent of danger where Bond just doesn't care. He's like, all right, yeah, this is the guy. It's like, it reminds me of the scene in again, based off Bond, Kingsman, where he's sitting down having a meal with them, and he's like, thank you for this happy meal. They'll do the whole thing with ordering McDonald's and stuff, but it's just those great scenes in Bond where the villain and the hero, the mass murderers and whatnot are sitting down and they're just talking and they're playing around a golf, and it's just so good.
It is great. One more iconic scene I want to talk about before I ask you to guess a little bit on Rotten Tomatoes and read some of the trivia that we have for this movie, or behind the scenes facts. But when Bond is knocked out and he wakes up on Goldfinger's plane and he sees Honor Blackman, and she says, I'm Pussy Galore. And he says, I must be dreaming, right? Which is just one of the great lines.
Yeah.
I was never able to find it and confirm it. So maybe you did. I couldn't find it for sure. But I had heard somewhere that that was not the original line. I must be dreaming. It was an improv from Sean Connery. That the line in the script is, she goes, I'm Pussy Galore. And he says, I can see that, but what is your name? But even Sean Connery was like, it's a little much. Why don't we? So he improvs, I must be dreaming.
I'm trying now. I kind of feel like there was a line about her mother in there somewhere. Did he say something about her mother somewhere?
He might.
Like something about her mother naming her or something. But I've never heard that other one. The one that I've never heard that about. I can see that. I mean, I don't put it past them.
Now, because also in the book, Pussy Galore was a lesbian. in the book, and Bond turns
it's interesting. Yeah, and we talk a little bit about that in the book. It's like, you know, 60s were a different time, and I think Honor Blackman. There was an interview on, I want to say it was on the Living Daylights Blu-ray. It was Miriam Diallo hosted it. It was like the Bond girls over the generations, and they got one Bond girl from each generation. And Honor Blackman was talking about how I don't even think she used the word lesbian in the interview or something, but she basically she's like, oh yeah, she was. Of course she was. You know, she's got a cabal full of women pilots. It's like, of course she was. And here was the woman who played the role, and she's like, yeah, she was lesbian.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So Bond's masculinity was so virile in the 60s. He was able to convert.
So funny, like, if you brought that today, let's say they try to do Goldfinger today, like they did Casino Royale, and they want to do it again, like, oh, let's do Goldfinger again, but modern day. And they leaned into it, made her, you know, lesbian. The outrage by some people that didn't know that this was how it was, like, oh, now we got to do this with it. It's like, no, Ian Fleming, you know, 60 years ago was ahead of the game. He didn't care. It just was great storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah. People would be like, oh, they're just trying to be woke, making her a lesbian.
Lesbian. Bond's supposed to woo her and she can't because lesbian. It's like, well, that's how it always was.
But if she is a lesbian if they were to remake it and then Bond converts her, well, that's a whole different controversy.
That's a whole other thing. They're going to do that. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That would be a bold move. That'd be a bold strategy, Cotton.
Let's see if it pays off.
Let's see if it pays off. So here's a few of the behind the scenes things just to talk about. Shirley Bassey, who recorded the theme song, she actually sang the song to the opening credits. So the credits were rolling in front of her, and so she wanted to match the vocals to the music and to the credits. And on the final high note, the titles kept running, so she was forced to hold the note. And, you know, depending on who you ask, she either almost passed out or she passes out hitting that final note in Goldfinger. And she told a story that she only managed to hold the note after removing a bustier that she was wearing. So she had to do whatever it takes, right?
Oh, well, hey, for the song.
Whatever. Now, this is something that I loved. I loved reading this. So... Michael Caine was the first person to hear the completed score for Goldfinger because he and Terrence Stamp were roommates at the time, and they got evicted from their apartment. So Caine calls John Barry, who was a friend of his, and asked if they could stay in John Barry's spare bedroom. In his London residence. So Barry said, sure. And Caine lived there for several months. And one morning at breakfast, Barry said, hey, I want you to hear this. And he played the score for Goldfinger. And it was the first time he played it for anybody, and it was Michael Caine.
Wow, how about that?
Isn't that fun?
I was having a breakfast, and John Barry played a score for Goldfinger.
That is a great Michael Caine.
Well, I got a good Michael Caine. I don't do many impressions. I have a good Michael Caine. That's about it.
That's a great one. Okay, listen to this. Aston Martin was initially reluctant to part with two of their cars from their production. For the production, the producers had to pay Aston Martin, but after the success of the movie, both critically and at the box office, Eon Productions never had to pay for an Aston Martin again.
Oh man, I'll bet. Free advertising. Come on now.
It's the greatest. Free advertising. It's the greatest one.
That's got to be like the first. I don't want to say product placement because that's but Bond has always leaned so heavily into that and partnerships and Heineken and Omega and all those other things. But yeah, I wonder if the cars that was like the start of it.
Even though he had a Rolex in Dr. No, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny, like how it's evolved over the years, and it's got to be. I wonder, it's like if they lost the license, they're like, oh, we lost Bond. But Omega seems to be the big thing for a while now.
I love the No Time to Die Omega that they released.
Seamaster?
Yes. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, here's the last one. The recreation of Fort Knox was at Pinewood Studios and was so incredibly accurate that the the movie, it was so incredibly accurate considering no one involved in this movie had been allowed inside of the real location.
That's right.
For security reasons. The set looked so real that a 24-hour guard was placed on the Fort Knox set at Pinewood Studios so that pilferers would not steal any of the gold bar props. And a letter to the production from the Fort Knox controller congratulated Ken Adams and his team on the recreation. Auric Goldfinger's 3D model map used for his Operation Grand Slam is now actually housed as a permanent exhibition at the real Fort Knox to this day.
Oh, wow. How about
Pretty
that?
Cool.
Yeah.
That is another great scene where the billiard table reverses and you see the
that whole
Operation
little
Grand
layer of his when the ghost that's where they gas the people too, right? The floor kind of goes down. Yeah, just Ken Adam and his designs are just awesome. Just awesome.
Okay, so our final thing of the episode.
Here we go. Oh boy.
You have to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score of 1964's Goldfinger. I think we started at 95 with Dr. No. It went to 97, which you got right with From Russia with Love. What did the critics give Goldfinger?
Now, I'm going to say it didn't break 97 because I think From Russia with Love was probably one of the highest rated ones. I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to say 89%.
Okay, so you are right and wrong. 89% is the audience score. So you nailed the audience score, which I'm impressed by. Because I would have thought the audience score would be higher than 89. But the critics loved this movie. They gave it a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. The general consensus was Goldfinger is where James Bond, as we know him, comes into focus. It features one of 007's most famous line, a martini shaken not stirred, and a wide range of gadgets that would become the series' trademark. 99.
Yeah, I would have guessed the audience would have been 99 because I know the audience, that's their favorite of all time pretty much. And the critics are a little harsher.
I will say, for me, I won't reveal where in the book, but Goldfinger is definitely in my top 5 of all the Bond films.
I don't remember where it fell for me.
I think maybe a little lower.
I can tell you that much.
It's a little lower, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have some problems when this book comes out.
Oh my gosh,
some of my rankings are up there. Oh boy,
your poor mentions on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, where can people find you and follow you, Mr. Mike Kalinowski?
At Mike Kalinowski, my friend.
At Mike Kalinowski. You can find me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. We'll be back because James Bond returns in Thunderball.
Yes.
Boom.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now? Oh, Brad, what have you done now?